Hello, my name is Tom Jones. I'm the Executive Director of the Faith Inclusion Network. And the Faith Inclusion Network provides support for faith communities to include people with disabilities. We offer trainings, connections to resources, consultations, and consultants that can work with any faith community in any denomination or faith. So we'd love to, if you know of a faith community that needs some help or would like some support in the inclusion of people with disabilities, please let us know. So today, we're very pleased to honor Autism Month in April by talking with two great people here about autism in the Buddhist faith and in the Sikh faith. So I know everybody will have many questions. So if you would like to put some of those questions in the chat or in the Q&A box, we will get to them at the very end of our interview. So we will have some time for that. And also, this will be recorded so that everyone who registered will get a link to a YouTube recording. So you can look for that in the next few days. So today we're honored to have Baljit Guman, who is a Canadian author, speaker, and father. He was born in Punjab, India. He arrived in Canada during his mid-teen years, and he lives near Toronto with his family. Baljit has dedicated over 2 decades playing key roles in creating awareness around the issues faced by communities, with a focus on disability and minority rights. He achieved this through community activism, radio broadcasting, and writing for newspapers. He has prepared and presented policy-level presentations to various government ministries, tribunals, provincial committees, and regional police force committees. Baljit is an autism and neurodiversity advocate. He is father to an autistic daughter. He is founder of Sikhs for Autism. For the last decade, Baljit has worked to create awareness around autism and initiated conversations within communities across Canada and specifically in Ontario. Baljit's work revolves around autism awareness and advocacy by engaging caregivers into this conversation through his school speaking engagements, collaborating with other nonprofits, universities, and hospitals. Welcome, Baljit. We are so happy to have you with us today. Also, Anne-Laure Davin is a priest in the Soto Zen lineage. She's been offering free online meditation since 2012, primarily for autistic and neurodiverse populations via altsit.net. And Laura is now autistic and grew up on the west coast of France and immigrated to the United States in her 20s. She is a mother and lives with her partner in Northern California, where she is active in the Everyday Zen Sangha. She detailed some of her experience growing up in her 2016 memoir, Being Seen, and a link to that is posted in our chat. Welcome, Baljit and Anne-Laure, and right now we're glad to have you. I will turn it over to Rebecca, and Rebecca Wolf is our interfaith engagement coordinator and faith inclusion coordinator. So Rebecca has keen interest in Eastern religions and different religions. So she will be conducting our interview today. So Rebecca, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Tom, and welcome to our guests. It's really exciting to have not only an interfaith conversation, but also a multicultural, intercultural conversation. So I think I'd like to start by just asking both of you to talk about your personal connection with autism, yourself or your family, and why you're personally engaged with making programs and what has inspired you to do what you're doing.
All right, I can start it.
Okay.
Also, as Rebecca and Tom said, I'm Baljeet Koman I'm from Toronto, and I really want to thank Faith Inclusion Network for inviting us, and especially for doing this kind of webinar on the topic of autism. It is very important, and I'm very thankful for that. My journey with autism started about 18 years ago with my young daughter, who is 18 now, and she was diagnosed with autism. I think she was around 6 or 7 years old. And At that time, I have never heard of autism. My wife was not aware of autism. We were not sure what it is, how we're going to deal with that situation, what that situation mean for us. And uh, what we were looking once we had the diagnosis, what we were looking for resources or parents of other autistic children in our own community, in Sikh community. I belong to Sikh faith and Punjabi community. That is the Punjabi language we speak and the Punjabi culture. But we were not able to either find anyone, or if you find anyone, they were not willing to talk about it. So there was a lot of reluctancy to talk about autism, neurodiversity, and if you take it further to mental health or any disability. So we struggled with that for 6, 7 years as a family. There is a lot of stigma and taboo attached to autism or mental health or disabilities in South Asian communities overall. And me coming from South Asian community and Punjabi community and then Sikh community, which is even a minority inside a minority, this was not something that you openly discuss. This was something to be hidden and not to be discussed, and you don't get your child labeled. So we struggled with that, how to do that. And after 6, 7 years of struggling in silence, my wife and I thought that it can't be that we are the only sick parents of autistic child. There must be someone else. So we decided that we are going to take our story open. We're going to share what autism is, what we are doing. So we started Six for Autism, non-profit organization, on April 20th, 2019. And we did this very knowingly in April, because April is obviously the Autism International Month. Awareness and acceptance and advocacy happens. But it is also the Sikh Heritage Month in Canada. So this is the month where Sikh heritage is celebrated. This is the month when the autism is celebrated. This is also the month where the Khalsa order of the Sikh faith was established in 1699, where Sikhs were baptized, and that was on April 13th. And this is also the month when the founder of the Sikh faith was born on April 15th, even though his birth is observed and celebrated in November. So this month is very important for Sikh people, and Sikhism and autism came together in this month, and we said, hey, you know what? We are going to launch this campaign in April. So April 20th was the day we launched our the social media website. We didn't know what to do, how to go about it. We said, you know what, we're gonna start talking about autism on social media, and that's how the story started. And since then, 6, 7 years, it's been busy years in media, in talking engagements, working with school boards, universities, research, and now we are moving further to develop more programs in the community.
So just to clarify, this is Six for Autism is for the whole country of Canada or
Yes,
other
so
places?
yeah, so I always get questions, it's Six for Autism, is it only for sick people? And Six for Autism, it is for everyone to start with. We named the campaign Sex for Autism because the day my daughter got diagnosis in the hospital, and it took us 4 or 5 years before she got the diagnosis. And they made us sit in this room on sofas with the doctor and few other medical practitioners, social service, and they said, you know what, we think that we are giving your daughter diagnosis of Asperger syndrome. That's what they called that time, 18 years ago. Now they don't use that word. It is autism spectrum disorder. From the medical condition perspective, that's the word they use, and ADHD. So all we understood is that there is some kind of a disability with her, and our hearts sank that time as parents, not knowing what it is or how we are going to deal with it. And whenever personally I don't know what to do, or I'm in a situation where I'm looking for answers, almost everybody, and especially me, you go back to your roots. And the traditional upbringing and the concepts of Sikhism is, which I will talk in detail later as well, is Chardi Kala. Chardi Kala means to stay in high spirits, irrelevant of what the situation is. So Sikhism teaches you to be in the same wavelength all the time. Up and downs, doesn't matter. And how you achieve it is through seva. Seva is unconditional, that work that you do for community, unconditional service that you do for the community. And those are the concepts which I went back to get direction after the diagnosis of my daughter. And so we named the organization Sex for Autism. But we work with people from Caribbean, people from Iran, people from East Asia, mainstream Caucasian people. I'm attached to all these different organizations that I work with, and that's what the focus is. So Sikhism, to start with, is acceptance. Our one of the our holy shrines in Punjab, Shri Amritsar, we refer to it as Darbar Sahib. It have four doors. What that is symbolizes is that anybody, irrelevant who you are, what faith, what color, what race, you are welcome there. So that's why it is Six for Autism, indicating that acceptance is where we start, and we work for everybody, and we work with everyone.
Very inclusive,
Yeah.
very global. Um, and we'll get to more of some of the Sikh kind of
Yes.
beliefs after, but I'd like to come to Anlor to share about your personal journey with autism. And I've recently read much of your book, and I'm also curious to know if you could share about how you came to Buddhism, because I read in your book that originally your family was Catholic. So, and then later you stayed at a Buddhist center. So, could you share a bit about your journey? And then, of course, people can go to your book to learn more about your journey later.
So, well, before I launch into more, I just want to say thank you. It's an honor to be here with you guys and everyone. And also, I'm far away from knowing everything about both Zen practice and neurodiversity. I mean, those are really boundless, huge topics. And as you said, I grew up in France 60 years ago. Time. And, at the time I had no idea what was going on, but I quickly, yes, basically as soon as I could become a little bit aware of things, I knew that I was different and that something was going on there. And I had no clue what. But one big fear was that I quickly found out that people like me, I mean, weird or something, often ended up in institutions. And, you know, that was something kind of big in my life, even though I never, thank God, ended in an institution. It has been close call at times. And I thank mostly my father for that, because parents are a very important anchor um, for the autistic child often. But it could be the other way too, and it happens. So many people helped me along the way. And I mean, to answer briefly the chronology, so I was not diagnosed until 2016, formally, properly too. So when I came to the United States 37 years ago, I was 23. I did not know still what was going on. But I mean, I was always trying to figure out. So I tried everything I could. And one thing that I'm not going to get into all of them, but one thing that I really, the, two things were a big turning point in my life, I'd say. I mean, there are more, but anyway. Uh, when I stumbled upon Zen practice, and that was only in 1999, so 26 years ago. And yes, the way this happened is I was living before when I arrived in the United States, I lived in Chicago for 12 years. And then a friend gave me a book on Soto Zen, and I thought, I'm gonna try. I mean, things were really messed up for me, and it seemed interesting. It made sense in a way, what I read. So I went to live in a monastery in California for 6 months. And from then on, I started to practice even when I was out of the monastery. I mean, practice small at the time and then more and more, those things go. But anyway, I'm alive and I'm here because of that. So, yes, I really am grateful to having stumbled upon that practice, Zen practice. And then the other thing which came after, I mean, clarify it. Zen practice will clarify things a little bit. And so I was finally properly diagnosed as autistic in 2010. And that also changed everything in my life. I mean, very, very little by little by little, but things started to improve. I started to receive support, which I needed. So I think I don't want to forget to say that along the way, I had a son, because that's a big thing, okay? And no, he's not himself autistic. His father was not, and but family stuff is often, I mean, autism runs often into families, definitely. And when I think back to my childhood, for example, I often feel that my father himself was probably also on the autism spectrum, but this was never said. So, I mean, that's that. But again, I'm just very, very grateful to be here. I mean, it has been a long journey. So that's all I want to say for now. If you want to know more, feel free to ask.
Mhm. Just to clarify, you're also a Zen priest, right? Like you have special training. Is there,
Yeah,
can you tell
I
me?
know I always forget plenty of things. Yes, so I was formally ordained, priest ordained by my teacher, Norman Fisher, Everyday Zen. Um, and that's like now over 2 years ago. And since then, let's face it, I am, I also forgot to talk about Otsit.
We can get to, do you want to say just briefly about it?
I don't know when I should say something, but I mean,
Sure.
basically, my life is totally committed to my Zen practice. I do meditate cross-legged. In fact, I am where I do it usually, except I turn around facing this. And I do that both at home and with other people, sanghas, groups of people doing that. And so when I became priest ordained, it was just more of a commitment and surrender, and I so to bring um, over 10 years ago, I forget exactly now, but my partner and I started this group called Artsit because um, I wanted to offer the opportunity to other autistic people because, everybody can practice Zen. Um, and so Otsit is another little sangha, my own, that I host, and 3 times online for free, geared primarily to the autistic people and neurodiverse people.
Mm. And it's open, right? So maybe we can share if anyone is
Yes,
interested.
it is, of course. Yes, it's open to anyone. Yes, it's otsit.net. Or, I mean, otsit.net. If you email it, it will get to me. So,
Wonderful. Well, I think we'd like to talk a bit more about the beliefs or the the views on disability because that's, as we're an interfaith um, group and an organization, it would be really interesting for people to learn about the intersection of the religious or spiritual and the disability part. So could you share a little about the perspectives on disability generally in Sikhism and Buddhism?
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to share this slide here if I can. Um, I'm assuming you can see it now. So, yeah, this one is, very briefly what Six for Autism, the organization itself is. We advocate for autism, especially within the South Asian communities and the Sikh communities. And the way we have been working is collaborating by another organizations and trying to take the Sikh perspective, Punjabi perspective, and South Asian perspective under a bigger umbrella into other organizations where there is a need for that. For example, school boards, they told me they had hard time finding a South Asian face who could talk to the South Asian communities about autism. And since then, for many years, I have been very, very busy with school boards, talking to parents and, talking to parents who are finding out that their children are autistic. So that's something about the organization, and I have spoken about six, and I think it's a very loaded slide here, but very important items and how inclusivity and the aspects of Sikhism about disabilities is. Right. There are about 30 million Sikhs worldwide and about 800,000 Sikhs in Canada, about 300,000 in US. So it's not a big population, but they have They have done very well for themselves. They have spread across the globe doing different things. So Sikhism was started around late 1400s under the teaching of Nanak. He was the first guru. There were 10 gurus, and he was the founder of the Sikh faith. His teachings can be divided by the three things that we learn from him. Is the very first is Nam Japna. Nam Japna is basically to pray for universal well-being, and prayer is, the Sikhs believe in one God, and prayer is just also a self-healing concept where while you're praying you're praying to the Almighty, but you're also giving yourself the strength and the direction. And then the second concept is kirt, to have honest living. And once you have the honest living, that's where the third concept comes in, one ke shako. That means sharing that hard-earned, honest money with others who are unable to do so for some reason or the other. So these are very basic concepts in Sikhism, which you follow. And the three other concepts which assisted me and my family and comes into play about the concepts and the thought of Sikhism about disabilities, and not only disabilities, about anything in the universe and how we are connected. The very first one is Chardi Kala, which is basically to be in high spirits, maintaining a state of positivity and joyfulness, irrelevant of what the situation is. So you're always upbeat and positive about the situation that you are in, positive about the things that you are going through. And then the second one, right there on the screen on the right side, is Sarbat Dapala. That means universal well-being. So when a Sikh prays, Sikh is not just praying for himself or herself, they are praying for the universe, every being, everyone, so that they are praying for the wellness of everyone, and they are seeking the better of humanity, and unity and peace. And this is where the concept of inclusion comes in from the prayer. Even when you're praying, you're not praying for yourself, you are praying for everyone. You're not asking things for yourself, you're asking for peace for everyone. And Chardi Kala and Sarbat da Pala, from the way I understand, is how do you achieve that? So you achieve that through that third concept there, Seva, which is a selfless service to humanity. You don't expect anything, and you do what any good that you can, as much you can, wherever you can. And by selfless service, what you're doing is you're uplifting yourself and you are able to serve others. So in Sikhism, uh, there is nothing specifically said about disability in our holy book, as it doesn't really talk very specifically. There are examples, yes, there are stories, yes, and it is as an example to be inclusive to everything and everyone, to accept people as is. And it's basically live and let live. And when you are accepting other people, accepting other thoughts, and there is another concept of vichar. Vichar means discussion, uh, where you are disagreeing or you don't understand. What you do is you sit down and discuss it out until you understand. And when you do things, you do it unanimously. So there is a big concept of doing things unanimously. And I have mentioned earlier as well, one of the we have a holy shrine in Shri Amritsar in Punjab, which is North Province in India. That's where Sikhism originated in 1469. So that holy place have four doors in all four directions. So what the concept is, that anybody, irrelevant of your faith or your race or your color or your creed, who you are, what you think, you are welcome in that place. And when you enter those four doors, you have to go down steps. You have to go downwards into the steps. It is symbolizing being humble to come down. And then that's where the holy nectar of the pool of nectar is there. There's water there, there's fish in it, and it's a very calm environment there. And the main hall, which is the Darbar Sahib, Shri Darbar Sahib, that's where the prayers take place. It is in the middle of that water. And the the concept of religion and politics in Sikhism is interconnected. So in the middle of the water, you have Shri Darbar Sahib, where the faith and the prayers happen, and right across in front of it is we call it Shri Akal Takht. It is the throne of the highest. It's a symbolic. It's a political symbolism and religious symbolism in front of each other, where politics take direction from the faith and do the right things. And That's the concept ingrained into our faith. Usually you will hear that the state and politics are separated, but in Sikh faith, state and politics are interconnected, where politics take the direction from the religious aspect to do the right things. And this is where the Chardi Kala Sarbat da Palla Seva, and through various stories that you can read through different books, and a lot of stories which came down through our grandparents, and I have heard stories from my grandmother about Sikhism, and different examples where there were disabled individuals in history, and how they were treated, and how they were accepted by the gurus. There were 10 gurus who provided direction. So Sikhism is a very inclusive, very young religion, only about 600 or less years, old, and it is very inclusive, and that's why you will see that Sikhs integrate into different cultures, different countries. When they go, they integrate very well, because that's part of their upbringing, to accept others as is, and offer what you have. So that is why, we, as I mentioned earlier as well in the introduction, that is why we named the organization Sikhs for Autism, because it is not only for Sikh people, it is for everyone. Because when you say Sikh, what that literally means is a student. Sikh means student in English. Sikh means a pupil who is a learner for life. That's what Sikh stands for. So you're always learning something new, and you're always doing the vichar, the discussion, to open up your mind and accept and see what's out there.
Well, that's really fascinating. And maybe later we could also share, if people are interested, some resources, or if people would like to learn more about examples of disability or stories in Sikhism, that would be great. We're getting a great overview right
Yeah.
now. So thank you. And Laura, could you briefly talk about in Buddhism, is there a positive or negative view of disability, or perhaps even just in Zen, whichever you feel is more suitable?
Well, you know, there are many barriers to inclusion, and I cannot address them all. But definitely one of them is getting properly diagnosed. I mean, it only happened to me basically when I was dying, but I'm very grateful they did. But then, at the same time, it's always either or, I feel. I remember when I was a child, and I actually wrote that in my book, that it was good that I was not properly diagnosed. Why? Because at the time, better not, in a way, I mean, I was able to become independent. And, becoming independent, that's better, is really something huge for many autistic people. it's not always so easy. So I'm grateful that I'm independent, and that, yeah. I want to say too that even though nowadays things have tremendously improved in France, um, at the time there was a misconception that autism was something curable with psychoanalysis. That it was a psychological disorder. Nowadays things are different, and I'm repeating myself, but my gratitude is just so big. What can I say? uh I don't know, did I answer your question, or Rebecca, or
Oh, well, I guess personally, like in the Zen movement, but also like generally in Buddhism, is there any kind of view about not necessarily autism, but just about disability? Like,
diversity? Well, they're really, really in many Zen centers nowadays. There is a movement to find out how to best support the neurodiverse people, and I mean, the core of meditation is to pay attention and to open up. And so, learning how to best help neurodiverse people falls totally into the Zen practice. So,
hmm.
yes, I mean, it's, meditation is for everybody, and it's just a incredible thing.
So you would say that the Buddhist groups are inclusive, whether it's a cognitive issue or a physical issue, they're trying to be inclusive.
I would think, as far as I know, in United States, yes. Now, I don't know. I mean, I don't know in other countries that much. I mean, a lot of Soto Zen, which is what the meditation practice I'm specifically with, was originated kind of, not exactly in China and Japan. Japan has a lot of influence, and I really don't know much. I mean, there are books that were written, like The Reasons Why I Jump was written by an autistic child who is from Japan.
Mhm.
He's no longer that child, but at the time, he was still a teenager, I think. Uh, and, so I don't want to talk for other countries except those I know. And even then, I don't know that much. So
Right. So but it is a not a positive view, but there's not a stigma and there's like it's welcoming, would you say?
hopefully. I mean, but those things are so ingrained in us we think we're open, but I mean, this is what happens when meditating is we start seeing that there is a sentence in Soto Zen that we often recite that is, delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them, which is impossible vow, but we vow to end them. We try, we do our best, but it's inexhaustible.
Mhm. Like me any kind of mental how would you like what would be an example of that?
I mean, like, I can talk to, I know plenty of people who also practice Soto Zen with me. Some people definitely don't get it, anything much, okay? But many do. It's like, there's always a little bit of both. I mean, and
Mm.
definitely autism is just a hard, because it's so invisible in many ways, like now I'm 60 and people can be like, really? You're autistic? Huh? Well, yeah, I was not always like I am now. My practice has really changed things for me. Not that I'm no longer autistic in many ways, but I mean, the brain and the body, they're together. Do with practice again and again and again, that's a big thing, again and again and again. Practice for anything anyway will change things.
Mm. Just one follow-up for you and Laura. How are your groups different? I think I may have asked you this when we talked earlier. Um, how do you make your groups inclusive for autistic people? In what ways?
Well, outset meditation is geared, I mean, it is intended primarily for the autistic and neurodiverse people. And so most everyone who joins is either autistic or in some other way neurodiverse. And nobody who self-identifies as neurodivergent is excluded. I mean, the only thing we ask is that one has to be able to sit still for the most part. 30 minutes for 30 minutes at a time.
Hmm. That was the other interesting aspect to me. It seems a little bit contradictory. Not that I am an expert about neurodiversity, but it seems like in Zen, you have to sit still a lot or do things slowly. And does that contradict with, or is it actually helpful for neurodiverse people? I'm wondering, is that an obstacle or something that's like a benefit for them more? That's why they're drawn to it.
Well, okay. I mean, it definitely is helpful, but at the same time, yes, it can be. I mean, you know, I don't think autism per se makes sitting difficult. Okay, it might be a problem for people with ADHD or perhaps OCD, but I know many of them who sit nonetheless. Now, yes, when people have a special neurological condition, they may be experiencing much greater adversity at times than others who are sitting still. But this cannot really be helped. And also, at the same time, that is exactly what helps the person to wake up, to awaken. So, I mean, practice is never such an easy thing, any practice.
For anyone.
Yeah, for anyone.
Is it particularly challenging, or do you think that there are some things that are easier for neurodiverse people with the
Well, I mean, I can only talk for myself because everybody's
Hmm.
different.
Oh, sure. Oh, please, for yourself.
But like for me, when I started to sit, I remember one thing that was extremely helpful was the sensory stuff. So much better. I mean, dark colors, very low, usually light, nothing blaring, and silence, for God's sake, silence. For me, I mean, I'm doing better with my sensory stuff, but there has been time, if you read my book, The Third Part, you find out that it was pretty bad. Um, so does that answer your question once again? I mean,
Yes, yes, yeah. More specifically, in case people may not know a lot about Buddhism or some of the practices, so that is helpful. So some of it is sensory, and yeah, Zen is, as you said, there's a lot. There's sitting, there's silence. In case people didn't know, you also do walking meditation slowly, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, well that gives us a good glimpse. Um, and I wanted to also ask Baljeet, how are your programs inclusive? For what ages are they? Is it the whole neurodiverse spectrum? Like, is it more educational? How do you try
So,
to do?
so for last 6 years, what we have done is we have kind of purely focused on awareness. So um, there is a faith, Sikhism, and then there is the culture, which is the Punjabi culture or the South Asian culture, or if you are a Sikh living in Canada, there is a Canadian culture. If you're looking in England, there is an English culture. So faith is very clear and inclusive, and it have space for everyone. But when it comes to culture, that's where the stigma comes along, and that's where the taboos come along, and they go back generations and centuries. They have pre-assumed things about various, mental health issues, disabilities. Autism is so new that in my community, a lot of people would not know what autism is. It is a very new concept for people from Punjab and the people who are from Sikh faith or South Asian perspective. So our focus been at awareness. So when I was going to start this campaign in 2019, I was doing a lot of research, watching things online, and what I was finding is a lot of mainstream cultures, Caucasian culture, French culture, or England, or even looking at Israel. Uh, they were all at acceptance and advocacy stage, where I see them talking on TEDx. But I could not find anyone from my faith and my culture doing that. We are at awareness stage. We are behind. We are way behind. It is a very long uphill battle to change the mindset. Uh, Autism or neurodiversity or anything else, right? So we said, you know what? We need to start from awareness. So I have always used these three A's concept: awareness, then you go to acceptance, and that's when the advocacy will start. But if we are not aware and we have not accepted what it is, we are not able to do advocacy, and we are not able to change the mindsets of our communities. So my last 6 years have been very purely trying to start this conversation in my community. Either it is people from Sikh faith or any other faith, my local communities and across Canada. I get phone calls from India. I get phone calls from England. I have spoken to few people from California as well in US, but majority of that work was focused in Canada. And we have reached a point where we are trying to get that word out, where people have started to connect. I have hundreds of parents now across Canada, non-profit organizations who bring in the Sikh parents and caregivers and South Asian parents and caregivers into their meetings, and I'm able to share my story with them, that how I started. I'm not being autistic myself. I'm learning as well as I go from my daughter. So I have worked with both thoughts: the autism from a medical condition perspective, and then autism from the identity perspective. So I have worked with both groups. I have worked with educators, schools, and school teachers and principals who are autistic, and for them it is their identity. And then I work with those caregivers who have young children, and they take it as a medical condition. So I walk that line, and I work with both communities, and I try to understand both concepts myself, and how best to support them and what can be done to help these communities. So far the work's been very awareness focused, but I'm gonna try to. I have a few more slides. I'm gonna share that slide back again. Let me try. And I will. So what happened is, through this awareness, the name of the organization went around in school boards, and hospitals started contacted me. Then what happened is, in 2023. Now, I'm showing this because our focus is now shifting. We are getting that awareness piece kind of completed, not 100%. I mean, trying to go into this acceptance mode. And what happened is Queen's University in Ontario is a very leading university in Canada. They are known for their medical perspective, and a lot of surgeons and faculty of education is there. So they contacted us and they said, "Hey, you know what? We want to do a research on sick caregivers of autistic individuals in Canada, and we are looking for a organization which we can collaborate with." And apparently, we are the only one organization that at that time started talking about this from the sick faith perspective. So they did a research which is called, we did a presentation too as well on this, the sick caregivers educational experience in Canada. So it is done by the Faculty of Education by Queen's University, but it focuses on two aspects. One is the issues with the education system in Canada and how they are able to or not able to support the autistic individuals, and also the community perspective. Are there any issues in the community? So now what we are doing is taking this research. There are gaps which have been identified, some of which I thought it is there, but we did not have the data. And I have been involved in a little bit of political advocacy as well at a provincial level, at a state level, for asking for more support for autistic individual, more support for transition from childhood to adulthood, where the major funding and sport stops and a new sport starts. And how can we increase that? How can we make autistic individual independent, and and not put them in homes? How can they have that engagement with the community? So this research has provided, it is not fully released yet, so what you're going to see today is a very few points. We are finalizing it. We are having it translated in Punjabi language as well. That's the language Sikh people speak, majority of us, and it should be released in coming months in full format, what the findings are. But based on that finding, uh, these findings, what we are doing is now, hopefully this year, we are starting a autism caregivers network, where all the caregivers. So what I'm doing is, when we talk about autism, usually our focus is on the autistic individual, and then the focus is on the things they cannot do, and we forget the things they can do. And we are so focused on the negative part of it that we forget that there is a positive part, and there are skills that we should be working on developing those skills while they are young, and that they can be independent. Those skills can convert into employment. So, based on that, what we are doing is we are starting a autism caregiver network, where I'm trying to bring all the caregivers together and have discussions, bring in the professionals, provide that additional information, may it be funding, may it be resources in the community. How can we as a group help each other and not always look at the government only? What can we do as a community within to support our children, our individuals, so we can have an inclusive community in true sense, not just in lip service and in words, but in true sense. I always give an example that, a child starts writing with the left hand, and parents are just focused to make that child write it with the right hand. Why do we do that? Because majority of the equipment and things built in the world is for right hand. But what happened when we accepted the left hand writing? We had technology, and now you can have a left-handed mouse, you can have left-handed almost everything. So we don't have to force people to change. We as a community, our technology, our society needs to change to fit to the needs of individuals, not the other way around. And that's the mindset change that we are trying to work on with this caregiver network. And and some of the other gaps. And I will quickly touch on what you see on the screen. We find out that there is a limited knowledge on autism prior to child's diagnosis. And as a father, never heard the word autism when my daughter got diagnosed. I had to find out from doctors, research, read about it, and then figure out, oh, okay, this is what it is. And we are still learning. There is every child, every individual is affected differently. And they, as I said, medical condition versus identity, that is also a learning journey for me. Um, very limited or almost no discussion. I don't remember any discussion in my family or my extended family, my relatives, about disabilities, because we didn't have to face it. So there was no such thing as disability, or autism or neurodiversity or mental health, until you experience it, and that's when you realize, oh, there is such thing as these things, right? And as I mentioned earlier, Sikhism is very clear. There is no stigma, there is no taboo around autism or neurodiversity, or it is all inclusive for everyone. It is to let accept people as is. But the culture, the Punjabi culture, the South Asian culture, the stigma is rooted there. And that's where, as I said, the politics need direction from faith, and I think the culture needs direction from faith in this case as well, to change that mindset. And that's where the stigma comes in. So when we talk about, when somebody says a Sikh, Sikh and Punjabi culture kind of go hand in hand. So it is very confusing even for me to explain the difference, because it is so intertwined into each other that it's hard to sometimes separate them, to the culture and the faith. Even during the research, this was a big discussion. How do we keep that separated? And it was keep coming over back and back and back again. And then one thing we found out was there was a lot of mother blaming. Usually it was the female who was being blamed, that you must have done something wrong during the pregnancy or didn't take care properly, and that's why your child have autism. And there is you guys are father and mother not good parents, you didn't raise them up properly, so maybe that's why they're like that. So there is a lot of this misconceptions at the cultural level, which we are trying to correct it. And let me go to the next slide as well. I can touch it as well. So is it the community or religion? So there is, first of all, lack of community knowledge. There is no discussion. There is no resources to go to. Now they have started to develop, but there weren't many when we started our journey, almost 18 or 17 years ago. When my daughter was born in 2007, you say autism, people will just stare at you. They wouldn't know what you're talking about. There was no talk about mental health. Social media was just, starting to catch up. There was not no TikToks or no Facebook, no Twitter. Facebook was just starting up. So there was no these resources available to you. And there's intergenerational stigma which is passed down. Is the first response that, hey, you know what, we don't talk about this openly, and this is something to hide, and this is just, it will just go away. And people forget that autistic child is going to be a autistic adult one day. So it is not, it is a misconception in the community where they say, oh, it is a child issue, it will go away when they're adults. And it is my whole energy to explain that, hey, it is for life. We have to accept it. This is how it is. We need to change so we are able to adapt to their way of doing things, their way of reactions. Some individuals may have sensory issues on top of autism, ADHD, as that will hyperactivity, and usually autistic individuals have multiple diagnoses. So it's not as easy just to say that the individual is autistic. They may have multiple other diagnoses that they are dealing with, and how all those diagnoses are interplaying. Um, and all these pre-assumptions about autism and causes and why it happens are so many misconceptions there that it's going to take some while for any organization or any individual to break those down. And uh, Sikh faith, just like any religion, is peaceful. Respect all the people, all the persons, as is. Accept everybody. And what we are looking at, one of the gap that was identified was the religious spaces can provide guidance and support, which unfortunately is lacking in Sikh faith. It is just assumed that the Gurdwara, let me see if I have it on the next slide. Yep, right there. Gurdwara, which is the fourth line from the top. Gurdwara means it is a place of worship for Sikh people. There is a temple, there is a church, there is a mosque, and for Sikh people, it is called Gurdwara. That's a place of worship. And what we're finding out, one of the big gap in this research was identified that I feel uncomfortable and taking my autistic or neurodiverse child into the Gurdwara. The way we get the stares when there's a tantrum, and the attitudes we get from the community, from the people who work there. So what we're trying to do is, so as you asked, your question was about the program. So Autism Caregivers Network is one thing that we are working now. And the second is that we're trying to start some kind of a training program for those people who don't have interaction with autism or don't have the knowledge of autism. And that includes the place of worship and the people who run it. So our next steps that we're working on is to get engaged with the different places of worship, the Gurdwara, the Sikh place of worship, and try to create a one model pilot project Gurdwara where there is a sensory room. Their staff is trained to some extent what autism is, what neurodiversity is, and how to react or how to address if there are any issues with any autistic individuals. So they have the resources to deal with that. Right. So we want to create that one pilot project, one model, and then spread it out and try to replicate that model in all the place of worship. So now in Sikhism, the place of worship is extremely important. It is the hub. So your child is born, you want to name your child, you go there. You want to do marry, you want to do anybody have passed away, you daily events, religious events on every weekends. Everything you do in your life, you go to the Gurdwara, irrelevant of what it is. It is almost like the center of whatever happening in your local community. That's where you go. But if the Gurdwara is place of worship and the Sikhism says, hey, our holy place have four doors on four directions, anybody is welcome, then we must be inclusive and trained and have the resources to accept the autistic individuals into these places of worship. And few parents have told me that, hey, we are unable to practice our faith because I am not able to go into the Gurdwara with my child and I have no place to leave the child at. And that is an issue. That is a huge issue because this is the place where you find meaning, you find peace. This is where you interact with the community. And that's necessary. So we are moving forward. We are behind rest of the world, even though the Sikh faith is only less than 600 years old, very open, very inclusive, very advanced, very futuristic, have already adapted things which are already coming there. Yet, logistically speaking and practically speaking, these small little things are not in place. And that's what we are trying to address. So those are the few programs, as you say, that we are developing. And in addition, we also plan to start education assistance fund for any autistic individual who is able to and willing to go to college or university in Ontario or Canada. That is something not completed yet. That is something we are just starting to develop with getting some help from the other organizations who know how to do that. So we are able to assist children or adults or individuals who are autistic and want to pursue some educational skills. So those are the three things we are working on: caregiver network, training programs, and then the educational assistant fund. So what we do is every year we create a target that this is what we want to do, and that's what we work towards. So this is where we stand right now. Your mic is off.
Thank you. Um, that gives us a really good sense of what you're trying to do. And that was actually my final question, was about how can our faith communities better support autistic people. So it sounds really hopeful for the future, what you're trying to do. And um, Anlar, would you like to briefly mention, are there any other Buddhist groups that are doing similar things, or in the future, are there ways that you're thinking to do more? And then we'll go to Topher for the Q&A after that.
Well, I just want to say that also, I was thinking about the question of history of neurodiversity in Buddhism. I wanted to let you know that actually some people speculate that Buddha himself had autistic traits. I mean, like, for example, he had inward focus and detachment from worldly concerns. He had profound empathy expressed through ethical teachings, but not often with emotional neutrality or a transcendent tone. And, he rejected conventional social life and a royal future. Yeah, that's true. So anyway, he had like unusual capacity for deep meditative state and abstract thinking. So anyway, I wanted to say that because it matters, I felt. And as far as how some ways Buddhist communities can better support autistic people, well, I mean, one thing I could say is that it would be nice to have neurodivergent speakers, say like me. No, I mean, anyway, who touch on that experience, which in their Dharma talks, not easy to do. I know. And then the other one that's obvious is sensory issues. I mean, if somebody comes and just ask, I mean, if the incense bothers them, well, I mean, don't have incense, or, extinguish it really quickly. I mean, we do that in our household. And then we hope that by practicing attention, like I said before, people are going to, pay attention to the needs of the neurodivergent practitioners. That's all. Oh, one thing I want to say. I don't know if this is the end yet, but I do want to say that in Zen, I learned this great statement because it's very humble, the whole practice. And, I want to apologize because if I said anything that great on somebody, because it's not that easy, and and I just wanted to say that. That's all.
Oh, thank you so much, Anne-Laure, especially about the autistic traits, perhaps, of the Buddha. And I'll share in the chat later. I found some books related to autism and Buddha, so I'll put it in the chat. Yeah, thank you for that. And now I will pass to Topher, who has some more questions for you.
Hello, I apologize for missing a bit of the first. I'm currently a congregational minister, and sometimes pastoral needs arise, and you end up chatting with folks and missing the start of the webinars that you wanted to be on. So I apologize if you've covered anything that I raise as a follow-up here. I'll also encourage anyone who is participating, you can use the Q&A function that should be at the bottom of your screen. Type in the questions that you have and make sure that if you have pressing questions, if you're very curious, put it in the chat and we'll make sure that we get to your questions and make sure that we're addressing the things that are pertinent to your curiosities here. But Baljit and Anlor, thank you so much. I have learned so much and will continue to as I think about what you've shared. I have a particular question about sort of accommodation in general within Sikhism. So for Baljit, could I ask, I'm aware and not being a practicing Sikh myself, I could have things that I'm wrong about. But my understanding is there are kind of 5 core material items that all Sikhs are, or baptized Sikhs are sort of commanded to wear and have on them really at all times. And I'm curious if there are accommodations for those who are baptized who cannot or would much rather not have all of those. I'm thinking in perhaps of someone not autistic, but perhaps with a lower body injury or quadriplegia or something where they're sitting for quite some time or maybe don't have control over their bowels and thinking of the undergarment and whether that might not fit, with a wheelchair or something like that. Are there accommodations in general for those kind of 5 items within disability accommodation?
So it goes back to what I mentioned earlier that April, the Order of Khalsa was established in 1699, even though the religion starts in late 1400s. That's when the baptization happened. So you are a Sikh, but if you baptize and have those 5 material items, and then there are more, daily prayers and what time and how you do that, there's more to it. Once you're baptized, you are considered as the Khalsa Sikh. So Khalsa means pure, that you have you have gone to that level where you're gonna live that lifestyle in a certain way, and no drinking, or you have to do the right things, and 5 materialistic things. That one is the small kirpan. We call it a kirpan, which is we don't use the word knife, but I don't know how to explain it. A small knife, small sword, you can say, but a small sword that you wear underneath your clothes, or some people you may see wearing on top. Then there is a small wooden comb that you keep inside your turban, and I will come back to the turban. And you have uncut long hair, which you tie in a knot, and then you wear the turban, and that comb, wooden comb, is there to representing the cleanliness. So every morning you comb your hair, you tie your turban from scratch. You don't tie turban once and then take it off and on. You have to clean it, wash it, do that. You have a special kind of undergarments that you wear, and then you wear a iron bangle, which is usually it could be steel, anything, but originally it was the iron bangle, and you have uncut hair. So those are the things that you wear when you are baptized, and then there are more procedures and practices in place that you do. So when I have been talking about how much Sikhism is inclusive. I am a Sikh. I'm not a Khalsa Sikh, but I don't wear a turban. I have none of the 5 material items you just mentioned, but I am accepted. I am still able to practice the concepts that I discussed at the start of this webinar, and based on that, I'm able to run an organization which have the Sikh word in it. And I am accepted as is, and the Sikh people appreciate the efforts this organization does. So that is the level of acceptance. And the accommodations, yes. For example, I will give you an example. Some people either are unable to, or their preference is that we are not going to wear that small sword. Some people have even a very small sword which they keep it somewhere else on themselves, so they are able to do that. And if there is a medical condition or there is a need to modify and accommodate, they can always consult the priest or the Gurdwara members and have that completed. And in some cases, in these cases, you wouldn't do that, but in some cases, so we have how do I explain this? We have a head jathedar. We call it jathedar. Jatha means group, and he's the leader of the six. He's the leader of the group. If I have to give an example, he would be equivalent to Pope. So he is, you can say, the Sikh Pope. So when he directs or orders something that is final, and you follow that, and they have the authority that you can go to and say, hey, you know what, this is what we need, this needs to be addressed, and they will address it for the whole Sikh faith. But in this matter, for accommodation for disabilities, the faith is so inclusive and so acceptable. It is understood that there is a need to accommodate something, and how do we accommodate that is the discussion, and that will happen.
Okay, thank you so much. This is absolutely fascinating. I appreciate your comments there. In the chat, we do have a question here. We have two questions here really about meditation. And so for Anlor, if you could walk us through just a little bit more on meditation. One question asks, does seated meditation, or do you find seated meditation helps with autistic anxiety and social disconnection? And a related question is, as people are meditating, are they welcome to use things like fidget toys so they can use their hands, so they can preoccupy their hands while freeing their minds? So if you could maybe share a bit more on meditation.
Yeah, so the first question, I mean, yes, meditation can help with anxiety. But sometimes it's you know, it's never 100% guarantee. And also social, my partner doesn't feel so good about the social part of it. Personally, I got to know plenty of people, and it's like my family, my sangha. And so, you know, you know, this is very kind of a Zen in a way. You know, it's never totally that way or totally that way. You know, it's kind of a balance. And as far as having things in your hands, yes. I mean, if it's done quietly, I know some people, you know, I mean, just quietly is the idea. You know, you can't have something very noisy because there are people around, and you know, and plus you don't want to move too much because it is distracting. But very subtly, quietly in my own group, well, yeah, we're not extremely at odds. It's okay. Okay, does that answer your question?
I think so. Yes. It's so many more questions now. The idea of, you know, allowing some movement, non-distracting movement makes a lot of sense. I'm wondering about folks who are sensory seeking, which might be maybe less common in the autistic community, but certainly a significant group. Are you aware of any meditative practices that do have loud music and lots of movement?
Well, there's other type. Yeah, I mean, there is Tibetan practices where people do make a lot more sound. And I mean, I know some autistic people who do Tibetan just for that, mainly. Not just, but anyway. I mean, it's, Yeah, and in my group, Otsit, we try to really accommodate many others. But you gotta understand, if you go in a monastery, I mean, a very, and there is, like, say, 60 people sitting all together in quiet, and quiet is of utmost importance. Anything you do is going to make some sound, believe it or not. I mean, those clothes, some people come with plasticky clothes, and as soon as they shift, you hear it. I mean, it's really a difficult thing how to keep from, and the idea is to keep from distractions. So, I mean, it's not an easy answer, and we all do the best. At Otsit, again, this is my small Sangha. I am not as hardcore as some places. We have our in-person retreats, which, we normally we're online 3 times a month. That's the free part. And we have a yearly retreat only for 3 days. And let's face it, we'd rather people not move too much. Again, there are others there. It's not easy.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, and different practices for different people to meet different needs, and that's part of why we do the work at Finn that we do of uplifting and supporting a wide variety of different faith traditions for the express purpose that not everything fits every purpose. There was a comment in the chat that I'll read out loud, just that Osho's dynamic meditation, it might be an opportunity for people who are more sensory seeking. But we are coming up on 3 o'clock, and I know Tom would probably like the opportunity to close us. So Anlor and Baljeet, thank you so much. And Rebecca, thank you so much for facilitating this, and Tom for organizing it. We really, really appreciate your wisdom, your insight, and your information, and your personhood. Thank you for being you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Lauren, Bajit, I want to thank you both for sharing your life and sharing your experiences with us and educating us about Zen and Buddhism and Sikhism. And I think we've all learned a lot. And so thank you for being willing to share with us. And I know this has been recorded, is being recorded, and so others will get a chance to hear you as well as we send this out to people who have registered and also post online. So it's been an honor just to listen to both of you share, and I would encourage people to follow up with both of you and check out your books, check out the work that you're doing now, and we thank you for being with us, and so we hope to continue some of these conversations as we learn from people of different faiths and how much we have in common. And that's one thing, the takeaway that I have today is how much we have in common as in how we view people. And so so it's always good to share, and it's always good to share experiences and find out that we're more connected than not. So thank you for this whole experience, and we look forward to continuing conversations with you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. It was a pleasure being here. Thank you.